Good morning, everybody. This is Coffee and Politics. Sorry to get started a little late here, but I am just so stoked and excited about this topic this morning with South and West Dallas and all of the discussions about gentrification and urban development and high-rise apartments and uptown coming to South Dallas. I thought it would be great to have two well-known developers here in Dallas to come and talk about this topic. Just to give some background and clarification about gentrification, because it does have a negative connotation to it. And I kind of want everybody to understand exactly what gentrification means. So typically, it's the buying and renovating of urban areas. So typically, disenfranchised areas that are low income, middle class and upper middle class families, and individuals come in and start buying properties and renovating the homes and businesses in the areas. So with that, you see an increase in property values. So as property values go up, that also means that the taxes on those properties go up. And sometimes with the lower income families, they're no longer able to afford to live in those areas. So you will then see displacement of lower income families because they can no longer afford to live in neighborhoods that they have been part of for decades. Now, our guests here do a lot of development here in Dallas, Oak Cliff, DeSoto, over by the Sylvan area, West Dallas, South Dallas. So it's great to have these guys here to kind of talk about how gentrification has been done in the past and kind of where we can marry the mixing of families and income levels into areas in Dallas. So I would like to thank you guys for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if you would please just introduce yourself and just kind of give us some background on you so you can have the floor first.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate the invitation to come and speak on your show. My name is Kharish. I'm the general manager of HMK Limited, and we are the property owners in West Dallas. We own a lot of single-family rental property, commercial property as well in West Dallas, and single-family properties in Oak Cliff. And we've been working in West Dallas since 2003, and we've worked in Fair Park since 1999 and parts of East Dallas since 1997. So
a long history.
Yes, ma'am. We've been, my father and I have been doing this my entire professional career ever since I graduated from the University of Texas in 1997.
Awesome. And Monte?
And I'm Monte Anderson. I'm with Options Real Estate, a company that we started in 1991, and we're a full-service real estate development, brokerage, property management company that only serves southern Dallas County and a little bit of northern Dallas County for all these years. I started out as a motocross racer when I was in high school.
So that's where all the spunk comes from.
That's right. and without any skills, quickly went into the construction business with my dad, and quickly became a neighborhood activist because I saw my friends leaving southern Dallas.
Really?
And at first I got mad about the people that were coming to the area, and then later on I began to get mad at my friends who had left, who had abandoned me. And so I made a decision early on that I would spend my entire life committed to rebuilding and restoring southern Dallas County, and so that's what I've done.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up being angry with the people that were moving in. So being a lifelong resident in Dallas, and I remember East Grand Avenue with J.C. Penney's, the mail order facility that was there, and Bank Street over. So I'm talking about over on the backside of Fair Park, what I consider the backside of Fair Park. So I had quite a few friends in school that lived on Bank Street, with the apartments that used to be there. And so just kind of watching Dallas change and evolve with Freedmanstown, which is now Uptown. I kind of have some of the same frustrations and anger. But now, as an adult woman, I'm more pissed off in my own community than I am people who are just kind of seizing a business opportunity. And so that's one thing about gentrification I don't think that a lot of people talk about is, you know, as a business person, you're always looking for opportunities to buy low and sell high because the name of the game is to make money. So with kind of the conception or the perception about gentrification, and I really want people to understand this because typically what is seen is, oh, whites are coming in and moving out black families and Latino families in the communities that we've been in for the past, 30, 40, even 20 years. And that typically isn't true. I have seen kind of a progression of gentrification kind of all over the country, and it follows a set pattern no matter what city that you're in. So people do need to understand that, and what I've tried to do is, people with means, especially kids that I grew up with, that now we're in a better financial position to do things like you guys have done, which is, buy one property, fix it up, get a family in here, and then move on to the next place. So kind of talk to me about, your philosophies with looking at urban renewal in areas that look disenfranchised and kind of look like a ghost town.
You like to go start, Monte?
Okay. Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, well, in the beginning days, usually after a place gets too good, or like the Bishop Arts or even Fort Worth Avenue anymore, it's time for me to move on to the next place. And so I think one of the main ways that I see that we can deal with gentrification as gentrification, instead of gentrification, is that we get in early and make sure that the locals in the neighborhood have ownership.
Okay.
And so, in my opinion right now, instead of subsidizing big developers to come in and take over, big plots of land that will eventually be gone.
Okay.
They will be gone. They'll come in, they will build, and they will take from the community, and then they'll be gone. That we should be subsidizing small entrepreneurs to own their buildings with a couple of rental units, or helping locals rebuild their houses at zero interest or low interest, and maybe add on a garage apartment where they'll have some income, or a family member can come back in. Because this is a way you can get density without changing up the character of the neighborhood. And listen to this statistic here. I mean, in Dallas County, the average net worth of an African American family is about $6,000.
I've seen 8, and then someone quoted
it's
12.
6, 8, 12.
It's under $15,000.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
But the average net worth of a white family is like $190,000 and up. And so in 1960, that before civil rights got moving, that was closer together. Why? What happened? I mean, so I think that we need to be working right now on helping teach and create net worth assets. Yes. And the only way I can do that, because I don't trust Wall Street, so at all. I only trust what I can do on a local level, is to teach people how to buy stuff like I did. And it's funny because when in Dallas, what we've said is, okay, we're going to have a big tract developer come in and build a group of homes out there, and there's economic development. We're going to sell you a house today, and the day you buy it, it's worth 15-20% less than what you paid for it. So your net worth actually went down.
So, time out, because that's not a philosophy that I've ever heard of. I hear that when you buy a brand new car. As soon as you drop off the lot.
Well, if you buy in the context of a suburban type development, I mean, the reason that Kharish's properties and my properties in the urban development, because they were built in times when we built better neighborhoods. We were town builders back then. And we had mixture of residential and retail together. We could walk to the barber shop or get a cup of coffee. And we quit building that, and when you build these single-use developments, these single neighborhoods that are gated in, I mean, they're with no other uses. I mean, nobody comes out of their house. And so they typically go down in value in all the suburbs, if you've noticed. They go down.
That's very interesting.
We need to teach people how to buy stuff like we do, and so they can get in, and when they buy something, they've actually increased their net worth.
Value.
And therefore
it becomes an
asset for their family, or they can leave on to their children.
So I definitely want to talk about your properties because those were a niche property in West Dallas. So talk about the history of all of those homes kind of close to the Trinity River area.
Sure, thank you. Well, we purchased the portfolio back in 2003. When we purchased the portfolio, it belonged to a family called Wheeler.
Okay.
Tom Wheeler Sr. and his son Tom Wheeler Jr. Managed the property. Tom Sr. died in 2000. He was 103 years old.
Oh wow.
We purchased it in essentially January 2004.
Okay.
And
so when you say this portfolio, so it was roughly about 400
400 houses.
Okay.
And another
That's
100
pretty
commercial,
large.
another 100 commercial tracts. It
Okay.
was a very large portfolio. When we purchased them from the Wheeler family, 200 of the 400 houses were on the verge of collapse and were squatted in by homeless people and drug addicts. And of the half that was legally occupied, only half of them were actually paying rents, and at the time, the highest rent was about $330 a
Okay.
month. So we spent the next 14 years really rehabbing the properties and getting families in there and providing them with decent, affordable housing.
Okay.
And but when we purchased the properties, we estimate that the properties were completely abandoned and neglected for no less than 25 years.
That's a very long time.
When we purchased the properties, when we finally paid for the properties in 2004, we paid over $1 million in liens and back taxes to the city. That's how neglected they were.
Ooh, now that can create a lot of havoc
for
for you
Yes.
acquiring
Oh.
those properties,
It was a tremendous challenge, and
to say the least.
oh yeah. And my father was 70 years old at the time. I asked him, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he says, "Yeah, this is what I want to do in my late career, serving this community and good, honest, hard work." My father was born in a house built with mud walls, a straw roof, and dirt floors, without plumbing and without electricity. And he knows that great things can emerge from very modest neighborhoods.
Yes, they can.
And that's what he wanted to spend his last years on. He's 83. He still comes to work every day. And we're very proud of the work we did. Now,
Okay.
We're open 6 days a week and have a maintenance staff that continuously works on these houses.
Okay.
Now,
Now, I do want to bring up, because that's part of, unfortunately, the negative side of those properties is that they were in such poor condition, and you guys have been, labeled as slumlords.
yes. Yeah.
So it just, good that your father wanted to focus on an area of housing that typically is neglected. So what have you guys done since all of the issues that cropped up as of the fall of 2016? Because that was very horrendous to hear that you guys were not maintaining the properties. That's what was being said, and that was part of the initiative with the high impact landlord initiative that the mayor started.
Right. I think it was a false allegation. Our houses are old, especially in West Dallas. Our houses were built in the 1940s, before West Dallas was annexed into the city of Dallas.
Okay.
So when these houses were built in the 1940s, they were built without the benefit of building code supervision. These houses were put up under no supervision, building code or city supervision, because you didn't have to if you were outside the city limits. These houses were built for the factory workers, for the munition factory workers on Singleton Boulevard. Okay, so years ago during the war, Singleton Boulevard had lots of ammunition factories, and these houses were built by the Wheeler family to house some of the workers. Now, again, when in 1940 in West Dallas, we're talking dirt roads and no plumbing.
Sure.
So these were essentially farmhouses, very ramshackle farmhouses. And when we purchased it, and over the years, we spent almost $5 million putting money back into these properties. Like I said, when we purchased our portfolio, half of them were on the verge of collapse.
Sure.
And when we closed, we were almost 100% occupied.
Great.
So and nobody moves into a house that they don't want to move into.
Right.
And I'm very proud to say that in 14 years, we never raised the rent. So if you were living with us in 2004 when we purchased a property, you're paying $300. If you're still there, you're still paying $300. And
Okay.
everybody is on a 30-day lease. Nobody has any obligation to
stay long term.
if they don't like that place. Now, and lastly, we have an open transfer policy. So if we have rehabbed a unit,
Mm-hmm.
any one of our tenants already qualified to transfer, and all I have to do is pay the incremental rent. But my tenants are so budget sensitive that even $100 or $75, is too much for their families
Them
to
to
afford.
absorb.
Yeah, to move into a nicer
So you kind of
property.
do sliding scale housing then?
Yes.
Great
Indeed.
concept. Never
Indeed.
thought of that.
Indeed.
So, but that's still a niche because if you think about, all of the kind of the legislation that's being altered with the
Mhm.
president
Mhm.
and, all of the issues with HUD funding going missing here in the city and people, HUD has said no more affordable housing in the southern sector because, the city has concentrated too much of it there. You guys have found a way to make sure that people can still have a decent place to live that is still within their budget.
Absolutely, and that's how we built our business.
Okay.
We had discussions about raising rents, of course we did, but we determined that our community and our tenants simply cannot afford a $25 or $50 rent increase.
Okay.
And so we respect that. We respect what our tenants can do, and our idea was simply just to make money. It was
Sure.
really to serve this community.
How do you make money?
Well, we're real smart. I'll tell you, I have 3 master's degrees from the University of Texas at Dallas. I have an engineering degree from the University of Texas at Austin. I have a
Mhm.
master's degree in business administration, accounting, and finance. And quite frankly, that's what it takes to run a business.
Okay.
And we make money by doing the right thing, by
Okay.
respecting our tenants. Now, I know there's a trade-off. Everybody wants to see everybody else in very good, high-standard housing.
Sure.
But when you are a private business, and do not have federal assistance or city assistance or government assistance to help you, then there's a serious trade-off. You cannot have high building standards and low rents. That
Right.
does not make business sense.
Right.
It does not. That's not
So
sustainable.
you guys didn't get any tips or
No,
anything like
no,
that to
no.
help?
We have not received a dollar or a penny of government money.
Okay.
And so, like affordable tuition, okay, affordable housing needs to be subsidized. Either the repairs to bring houses to a higher standard need to be subsidized by government, or the rents have to be subsidized. But
Right.
without government involvement in providing affordable housing, there's a serious trade-off that we're facing.
Okay.
Keep the rents low and the properties modest in order to serve the community. Now, I could spend $50,000 to fix each one of these properties, but there's no way I can continue.
You're going to recoup your cost.
There's no, and for the north of I-30, a single family rental begins at around $1,500.
Yes.
That's what it begins.
Yes. Yes.
And so for us to have a property that complies with Chapter 27, I'm going to have to charge around $1,000 to $1,500.
So what's Chapter 27 for my
Oh,
viewers that may not know
sure.
what that is?
So Chapter 27 is the City of Dallas's housing standard.
Okay.
Okay, it defines the standard for all housing in Dallas, not just rentals,
Mm-hmm.
but home-owned properties, owner-occupied properties as
Okay.
well. And my properties in West Dallas, built in 1940s, well, there is just no way they can comply with Chapter 27, and that's the real issue we're facing in terms of, people make the argument, why don't you fix your houses and comply with Chapter 27? I contend there is no way to do that, and Bill Hall, the director of Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity, agrees.
Okay.
These houses cannot comply with Chapter 27. They were just built in a time when that's not possible.
So I do want to mention, just looking at from an investment standpoint, and both of you guys kind of chime in on this. So typically, the way that I was taught with, starting a business and your return on investment is 3 years minimum with putting in all the long hours and the hard work. So if I purchase a property, like one of the houses that you just spoke of, and put the 50 grandness into it. So if I bought it for, and I'm just throwing out numbers, I bought it for $15,000, and then I put 50 into it. That's $65,000 that I've committed already. So then, if I want to turn around and sell it, I want to sell it for, $90,000 to $110,000 because I want to get that money back out of it. So now, looking at someone who was living in that house before in a community like that, they're not in the position where they're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, or even 40, where they could say, well, yeah, I can have great credit, so I can go and get a bank loan for this kind of property, and I can stay in it, or I can turn around and buy the rehabbed version of it. So has it just become that we're just driven by faster return on investments with housing? Because for me, that's kind of what I see. Just an outsider looking in is, how quick can I make my buck?
So when did real estate become a short-term, investment? I thought real estate was a long-term investment.
I thought so too.
So I don't see the three years. I mean, I see like at Belmont or something, it was 10 years.
Okay.
So
And that's right.
Wall Street-
You're the former owner of the Belmont Hotel.
Right.
Yes.
I started purchasing property around the Belmont in 1999, and then
Okay.
purchased the Belmont in 2004, and then opened it in 2005, and I sold it in 2015.
Okay.
But for
Okay.
many of those years were struggling years,
Yes.
no finances. I mean, close to, disaster many times, but we weathered through that because we understood the long-term viability of what it was doing to the neighborhood around it. The other thing that we knew we needed to get was I call them my guards.
Okay.
And so that's entrepreneurs that own buildings around me.
Okay.
So Metropause and Manny Rodriguez and people like that own their properties around me. And so
Okay.
I figured if I didn't want to be the king. What I wanted to have is a good property and other entrepreneurs, so it
To benefit
protected
from
me.
it.
Right, and so we all lifted together. But typically today with Wall Street or with bankers, okay, when you go get a loan with a bank right now, and if you buy in an area that's on the edge, okay, let's say, and it's got a struggle on. I mean, the way the laws are set up with the federal regulators and stuff that
Yes.
regulate your bank, if you're not cash flowing enough or not doing enough,
Okay.
your loan gets criticized,
Okay.
and they won't make you more loans. And so there's a system you have to produce not in 3 years, 1 year. I mean, you have to produce cash flow now, and
That's a big shift.
It's always been like that in my whole career. It's always been that way.
Okay.
And so you have to have lenders or partners or capital that's willing to see the big picture, to see it long term. And quite often when I buy property or fix up a property, and I don't hold on forever. I buy and hold for a while and then sell and then move on to the next place. And so when you buy one and you fix it up and it may not do so well, but if you buy another one in the neighborhood and fix it up, then this one's better.
Sure.
And then you get another one and fix it up. And so you don't have to block the whole block up. You can just pick them. You can just pick things, and then you bring. I like to say, bring my friends and family.
Right.
Buy here. If you go into some of my developments, you'll see my friends and family own stuff around there. And so then
So making a community.
it's like a
effort.
flywheel. It's like a flywheel effect, and it gets going, and it's like a snowball rolling downhill. Then all of a sudden, boom! You have, and what has to happen in the early days is the locals. Okay, or the artist who quite often get kicked out of a place that's gentrifying. They got to get in there and own something.
Okay.
It's just like his people. If they can own something for 50 or 60,000 or 70,000, then they've got wealth. They've got wealth, and when gentrification does come, and it will, I mean, everything is gentrifying or dying.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of,
Yes.
We just hope it's a little less harsh,
Dramatic.
more gentle.
Mhm.
But at least the locals get rich.
Okay.
Instead of getting taken advantage of.
Pennies on the dollar for their
So you
property.
remember the guy in Bishop Arts, the ice cream guy that got kicked out, that was a big deal. He's raised his rents. Well, what happened to him was kind of his own fault, okay, because he didn't get in and get a long-term lease or didn't buy early. Now, this is where we have to mentor and teach people, hey, this is coming, this is a good area. Like I tell people around Fair Park right now, I said, don't sell.
Right.
Don't sell when anybody like me comes through. Don't sell to them. Wait right now. In fact, you can call me, I'll help you. But
Sure.
But stay for now, rebuild yourself, I don't like people that come in and buy stuff and just hold it and hoard it.
Mhm.
I want somebody to come in and
that's
fix.
been systematic
That's right.
here
It's a
in
really
South
bad,
Dallas.
it's a
Yes.
really bad thing in South Dallas,
Yes.
and you can't build a house to sell, to rent for $300 anymore.
No.
And when you don't have something better, it's like one of the projects, I'm doing some work on in Vermont Village, south of the zoo right now in Ewing, in Vermont. I'm kind of the first again over in that area. So I have prostitutes and drug dealers and people around me, and it's like, okay, well, you gotta go in and run them out. Well, wait a minute, I don't run the prostitute out until I got something better for her.
Right.
Because if I run her off she goes to the next place. I mean, right now, this is her home.
Right.
And she's part of the culture there.
In the community.
Now, I don't have
right.
anything, till I get something better,
Right.
till I can provide her a solution, I just make a deal. Here, you pick up some trash around here,
Mhm.
you stand on my property,
Right. And just
So-
talking to some of the judges that I've had on the show with, the death sentence that can happen with having a felony on your record and, being excluded from housing and jobs as a result of that. And the homeless issue that we have. So closing down Tent City, which has been closed down plenty of times. And so now neighborhoods that are up and coming are seeing more homeless in their area. So, people are being told to call 311 and 911 to deal with, public urination and defecation. And it's like, we do, those with means, or as I kind of call it, that bubble mentality that, my bubble travels with me and everything is perfect and right with the world. And when confronted with things that are not what you think of as norm, people don't necessarily want to see it. They just kind of want it to go away. And so for me, just being on the outside looking in with what happened in West Dallas with your properties and all of the evictions and press that you guys got, it looked like it was an opportunity for a land grab because of the work that's being done in that area with the Trinity River Project, Sylvan, the apartments that are going up, and being on the outside, I'm like, yeah, that was a great opportunity to change the rules and now force you to get rid of your properties because financially, you may not want to put that money into those properties and really bring them up to code. So, yes, go ahead.
Let me address that. Unfortunately, we really feel that the city of Dallas and really the mayor and the mayor's office was trying to conduct a classic land grab, political land grab, and and really my first meeting with the mayor during his high impact landlord initiative, which I recorded and later published through the Dallas Observer, I think was clear that the mayor was simply telling me, sell your properties. This is your opportunity to sell. He, in fact, at the meeting, and it's recorded, said, well, we would like other people to own your property. Would you consider selling? Now that was his entire objective in that meeting. It was recorded. You can hear it for yourselves on theobserver.com. And the question is, one of the questions is, who does he want me to sell to exactly? I mean, that question is never really been answered because it truly isn't to Habitat, which I invited to my second mayor's meeting and to announce that we have a partnership to rebuild in West Dallas.
Sure.
And it's clearly not to my tenants and my community. That wasn't the mayor's proposal because he's done absolutely nothing for the community or tenants to provide them with home ownership assistance. So
and that's part of what came out of all of this was trying to preserve people to stay in those homes if possible.
Absolutely, and there's a big misconception that I filed evictions or on all my tenants. That's simply not true. I have not filed a single eviction.
Okay.
In fact, my 50 most delinquent tenants at the moment, I have been delaying filing those evictions. I'm going to delay as much as I can. My 50 most delinquent tenants owe an average of $2,500 each. It's about 5 months rent or more.
Right.
And so I'm doing everything I can to keep my tenants in their homes because, again, there is no other option. My tenants understand. They come to me in tears saying, "Where are we going to go to?"
Right.
And I keep telling them I'm doing the best I can to create options for you.
Sure.
Now, the mayor's press conference just last week on Monday, after 4 months of this crisis, the mayor calls a press conference and says that he's asked Catholic Charities to conduct a survey of my tenants' needs in West Dallas and Oak Cliff. Well, after the press conference, I got in front of the cameras and I said, you know what? Mayor Rollins and Monica Alonso are the only two people in Dallas who don't know what my tenants needs, don't know what the community needs. We need affordable housing in Dallas. That's what we need, and we need it right now.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to provide. I have produced a comprehensive affordable housing plan. I've submitted it to the mayor. I've submitted it to the council. And Councilwoman Alonso has no interest in discussing with me. Mayor Rollins has no interest in discussing with me. And Philip Kingston, the council member, tweeted just the other day confirming that the mayor refuses to discuss with us still.
Wow.
So
yeah,
just imagine for a moment. I followed your deal, quite a bit, so just imagine for a moment if you really wanted to deal with affordable housing. Here you have affordable housing. That if the city would come in,
unsubsidized affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
so it's this, unsubsidized affordable housing. So just imagine for a moment, instead of giving the developers big money to come in and gentrify this neighborhood, that if they help financing for his tenants to buy these properties.
Right.
So you could do zero or low interest financing
Right.
to help them, and then there would be so many different ways because you can't reproduce
No.
what he's got.
No.
You cannot,
No.
and
No.
there is a need for those things in the area. And if you did that, it would be a great place of gentrification, because then you could come in and you could incorporate we can't stop the flow of capitalism, okay?
Right.
But you could
Right.
incorporate capitalism,
At
building,
various levels.
and the affordable housing, and you'd have this really great community then.
Yes.
Instead
Yes.
of one that's just wiped out and the
Right.
culture's gone. And so it would be so easy if we subsidize financing, then it's no giveaway.
let me
It would
address
just
that.
be just
Right, yeah.
help.
Let me address. I 100% agree with you, Monte. And to give some real numbers behind this, the city of Dallas has subsidized the Trinity Groves investment to the tune of $45,000 per unit. Okay,
Mhm.
$45,000 per unit. High-end developments are being subsidized. I don't know how that makes any sense.
That,
So
yes, does make sense to me.
Like they got like 20 million or something like that.
Oh man.
So I do want to comment on an observation that I made. So
Mm-hmm.
with the bond downgrades that
Mhm.
Dallas has received, and lots of people that I've talked to, some have said, "Oh, we're going to become the next Detroit
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
we're looking like we're going to file bankruptcy."
Mhm.
So I have some friends that are in banking. They're like, "No, Dallas is not on the verge of doing that. We're still in good standing." But at the same time, along with Houston and Chicago and other cities across the country, pensions are becoming an issue with bankrupting a city. And so if I'm looking for a solution, it would be great to displace everyone who cannot afford a $250,000 or more property, because I can get a bigger bang for my buck as far as collecting property taxes. Then I can say that I have this money that I can provide services, fix the streets, do a better job with paying higher salaries for police officers and other civil workers. And for me, that's just like, well, okay, so you want the city to be rich, and where does everyone else go?
And where do all the homeless people you created go?
Right, right.
Look at the cost of the homeless. I mean, what you're doing is what they're doing right now is creating homeless people out of some of Kharish's tenants.
Yes.
Indeed.
I mean,
Yes.
there's no place for them to go.
No.
There's no.
I think your observation is very astute. Okay, the mayor sees this as an opportunity to raise property values in order to fund an unfunded, pension liability, help fund an unfunded pension liability. But again, it's at the expense of the most vulnerable demographic in the city. And
Yes.
every city has to have an affordable housing policy. Every city has low and moderate income
Yes.
households. You cannot eliminate this.
No.
This is Dallas. This is a very large area. This is not Highland Park. Okay?
No,
You
exactly.
cannot eliminate all low income and middle income constituents from the city.
Well, what's really interesting.
Nor do we want to.
Nor do we want to.
Exactly.
Why
Nor
would
do we want
Exactly.
That's where there's real
Exactly.
culture.
That's
there's
right.
where edge.
Yes.
There's
Exactly.
culture.
Yes.
There's
Exactly.
Yes.
people that start and move through. Maybe we can get them to move through and provide them a step.
Right.
Let me say this: this community in West Dallas and Oak Cliff, it has been the greatest honor to serve such an incredible, wonderful community. I think there's a lot of misconception about poor people, quite frankly, and if people were simply to get over their fears and prejudices, you would see a beautiful cultural fabric that is more than deserving to be part of Dallas. It should be part of Dallas, and quite frankly, is the heart of Dallas. Right, okay?
Right.
That's where it's at. If I could go back 20 years and God said, okay, you get to have 400 houses in West Dallas or 400 houses anywhere else in Dallas, I would still choose the West Dallas community and the Oak Cliff community because that's a wonderful community, and I'm more than honored to continue serving them.
And I will say this, so, I've talked about this a couple of times on the show with the history of South Dallas. And so everyone knows that the Jewish merchants moved to South Boulevard, Park Row, MLK, which back then was called Forest Avenue, Grand Avenue, and actually there was a widow, Mrs. Warren, which Warren Avenue is named after her, that she opened up that land basically from what we know as Fair Park today all the way to Lamar, where the soap factory used to be. And so back then, we're talking about no real rapid transit, so there was no DART, there wasn't any DTS back then. We just had a trolley system. And so people didn't have cars. So if you worked for anyone with any means, you tried to live close by because you were going to walk to work. Or you were taking a trolley to work. So to say that, you don't want low-income people living near you, to me is a slap in the face, because are you going to pay me $90,000 a year so I can go get a house in Cedar Hill or somewhere that's out of your eyesight and afford me buying a car, good transportation, personal transportation, daycare and whatnot for my children, and all of those things that I will need to support myself, to come drive back in so I don't have to be near you. And for me, it's kind of like we're repeating the same cycle.
It's disgusting. And here's what's even worse, is that the mayor and the current elected majority have, with these big freeways, okay, so the people that can get out of this area, so we can drive to North Dallas from South Dallas, get a job cleaning hotel rooms, or doing, instead of having the jobs in the community sustainably, and which were the way they were built, as you mentioned, that's the attractiveness around West Dallas, Southeast, and they're all, it's the attractiveness is the closeness in, and the modern human being now is recognizing that, hey, my quality of life depends on how close to work. So if you have a single mom in South Dallas with 2 kids, 3 kids, and how long is she gone just in that period? And so we're not creating sustainable communities by not creating jobs and stuff like we used to do. And so the wealth, just the wealth, having a car costs nearly $10,000 a year. And everything.
With your insurance and maintenance and
So $10,000 a year is like some of your tenants.
That's outside of their means, because they may not even make that much.
In Bishop Arts right now, like in Bishop Arts around that area, one of the problems is parking over there. And it's the wait staff and stuff having to come and park there because they can't afford to live there anymore. So they have to live out where you've talked about and drive in, so it's caused this problem. The affordable housing has to be mixed in. And we need the affordable housing in West Dallas to support the stuff that's going on Fort Worth Avenue. To support Trinity Grove and downtown. So people can work at the hospital and those restaurants.
Because again, if I'm the hotel maid, if I'm the cashier at the coffee shop, once again, you're not paying me $40 an hour.
If I can
you're barely paying me over minimum wage.
And if I can save you from having a car that you have to drive, you just got a $10,000 a year raise. You just got, and making $8 and $10 an hour. That's not enough. That's not enough money.
No, it's not. And so for me, with gentrification, that always seems to be the missing part of understanding that, we have these yuppies that move in and empty nesters that move in, and they're moving into these modern places. And again, they don't interact with the community because, they want to protect their investment and their people say, because I grew up here in South Dallas, and it always drives me batty when someone says, don't go outside the Fair Park grounds because, oh my gosh, you may get,
But we
you
were
know.
always told growing up.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah, no.
I never experienced crime until I moved to North Dallas and stayed with a boyfriend, you know, for a couple of years. And my car was broken into, my battery was stolen, and shoes, and the people came back. And I had to literally lock the hood of my car down just to preserve that. I never had that in South Dallas because, one, my neighbors watched me grow up. So they had eyes on me, as I like to say. And I like that community where, you know, you have an elderly couple living next to you. South Dallas at one time, you know, your garbage worker, your teacher, everybody lived in the same neighborhood.
So the mixture, the income mixture, okay, not just the race mixture, which
Right.
I intentionally put into all of my developments, both race and the income, intentionally work on that, is important because the influence of a low and middle and high income on each other. And I have proof of this up behind the Belmont, where we
Okay.
have low income now integrating naturally with affluent, you know, like a guy that's got a PhD from Harvard.
Sure.
Okay, and they're integrating, and there's a special thing that comes out of that to
Absolutely.
both the wealthy, affluent,
Absolutely.
and the low, because you never know what's happened, what word that one has said to another being on the street together that has triggered something that young child that never had been out of West Dallas now has got sights on Harvard or got sights on things.
That is so
So it's a
true.
natural integration. I don't go to
Yes.
any banquets that say we're all inclusive, we're all going to come together and be nice to each other.
Kumbaya moment.
We need to be building things and creating space where people naturally do this, and that's why the affordable housing is so vital, and this core around the urban core right now is all of that gets better. I mean, we have to deal with it. It has, and it would be much better to deal with it on a non-subsidized, non-government
Basis.
controlled basis.
Let me just add a little bit to the
Sure.
gentrification conversation. So again, I'm not hearing anything that from this panel that says we're against the high-end developers. What I really want to see is just an integration
Yes.
or an inclusiveness to where these newer developments include the community.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I think is lacking in any development in Dallas.
It does.
We've never had an instance where these large development and growth moves has incorporated the community in its growth plans.
Right.
In fact, what it appears to be happening in West Dallas is that it really seems to be just like an entire displacement of a community.
Just kind of bulldozing their way through.
That's right, without any regard to the families or the contributions of the generations of community that's been
Because
there.
that's history.
That is history. And
That's the fabric of who we are, and when you demolish that and get rid of it, it's just gone.
absolutely.
And becomes a story that people talk about.
Now, in terms of, I would like to say this, you know, affordable housing has to have, I think one thing that's missing from the affordable housing conversation, and you touched upon this, Monte, is that there needs to be financing available
Yes.
to the community, the
Yes.
affordable housing community.
Yes.
So what I'm doing for my houses in Oak Cliff that were built inside the city of Dallas in the 50s, 60s, sometimes even as early as 1925.
I was gonna say, yes.
So I'm providing self-financing. So I
Okay.
am financing these homes to my tenants
Wow.
for zero down because they've been with me for several years. Okay, that's their credit approval and that's their
And
down
for,
payment.
you know, a developer, for someone who invests in real estate, that is a benefit to the developer, to the real estate holder, because one, empty real estate creates problems. And I've seen this in South Dallas with
Absolutely.
vagrants moving in, and next thing you
Yes.
know, the house is on fire, the city is coming in and then bulldozing the property down, and then you have an empty lot. So making sure that people stay in your
Yeah.
property
Yeah.
is a plus for you.
And not just stay in it, but to really have the ownership and the vested interest of staying in it for a long time. And so my loans are such: 10 years, zero down, and 5% or less interest fixed. And I had two closings today, which the principal and interest payments were less than the current rent. Okay,
Wow.
and I've
And
done.
so at
That's a
one time,
legacy. Well,
yes.
listen, that's a legacy here where he's still making money.
Mhm.
Yes.
And he's leaving something behind,
Behind.
and leaving
Absolutely.
something on the table.
Absolutely.
Any good investor that's really a good investor who is committed to social
Mhm.
change and stuff always leaves a little behind for the next guy.
Right.
We've done
And that's
almost 30 loans in January, and I plan on making another 30 in February, and I'll have sold to my tenants or family relations of my tenants my entire Oak Cliff portfolio.
That's amazing because those are terms that you couldn't get from a bank.
No, these are typically every one of my tenants who would have gone to a bank, I think, would have been rejected.
And in 10 years, look at what he's done is change the net worth. We're talking about
Yes.
He's changed the net
Absolutely.
worth.
Yes.
And now hopefully they can be inspired to maybe become an entrepreneur or own another
Right,
building or
right.
do something else.
And I would say, talking about their mortgage payment being less than their rent, I mean, that was supposed to be the incentive of
Yeah.
becoming a homeowner.
Yes. Mhm.
Because one, you put stake in the game, you put skin in the game
Mhm.
to be a contributor
Mhm.
in what the city looks like and not being this kind of transient person where you just rent and
That's
you
right.
don't care.
That's right.
And so that's amazing to hear that you're focused on providing that service.
So we do the same in our commercial properties when I'm trying to, especially in the early days around the Belmont when I was, it was tough, and so somebody would come in and I would help them, either co-sign with them,
Mhm.
loan them
Exactly.
down payment, do the other. And so what I have is now, and not in a way that I'm always their partner from now on. Because many investors or developers will loan to somebody or help invest with you,
Yes.
but they're always going to own 51%.
You're right.
So this is a deal where you can really own all of it one day.
Right.
Not one where I keep my hooks in you.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, which is
Right.
very common what you see in, I won't say the names.
Well,
of other
I
places.
say, to me, that's kind of predatory.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
it's like,
We
you're
smart-
setting me up to fail
Mhm.
to protect your interests, and then you just end up keeping the property.
Well, actually, if I set you up, if I loan you some money and I tell you, well, you're gonna have the right to own up to 49% one
Right.
day.
Right.
I actually
One
keep
day.
my hooks in you forever. You're actually essentially
Yes.
like slavery nearly.
Yes.
I mean, you're
An
actually
indentured servant.
like-
Yes.
Yes, forever. And I'm always the man.
Right.
you
Yes.
know, and you're never the man. You know, you never.
Right.
I mean, you never.
Never
you-
take that
in
stake,
control.
being
Yes.
a stakeholder. Right.
And so I think that we need to provide infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and maybe you can figure it out with all
Sure.
these.
Well, I'll tell you my next proposal after you finish.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, here
But
it
that's
is.
what we need to do. Is
Absolutely.
it's not about welfare for corporate or low
Absolutely.
end.
No.
It's about helping people,
Mhm.
teaching people about money, and giving them the opportunity to not rip them off at 12
Exactly.
or 14% interest,
Exactly.
like hard money lenders do, or
Mhm.
Yes.
you know.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's about a low interest. That's what rich people are supposed to do. They're supposed to loan money to less fortunate people at low interest
Mhm.
and not
To
take
help
advantage
them,
of them.
right.
But the opposite is true of what we have in South and West Dallas today.
Correct.
Mhm.
It's the opposite is true.
So here's how my next stage is this. So I'm going to make 60 homeowners out of from my tenants, okay, and their families, and then I'm going to take the income that generates, and I'm going to reinvest it into other homeowners in Oak Cliff and West Dallas who need help fixing up their houses to comply with Chapter 27, and who need to get caught up with their property taxes, so that they can remain where they are, living in their homes, and then enjoy the appreciation that is certain to come to their neighborhoods. So they don't have to get displaced, and as the land prices increase, which they're going to, then they get to benefit economically, financially from that.
And you still benefit too. You still make money too.
Absolutely, sure. I mean, this is
So
the way
when-
we make
Yes.
sustainable economic or financial infrastructure to help the community stay where they want to be.
Yes. Now, to your point with the rich being a catalyst for those that are not in the same position to help bring them up. And I have been looking for guests to come on the show to talk about shock economics, because we've gotten into this place where we're giving subsidies, grants, loans that never get repaid to those that have the means to be able to do it themselves.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, these subsidies for the big developers create odd things on the earth.
yes,
I mean, they're not market driven, and so
No.
they're like a commodity. When the markets crash and stuff, then they crash. And so guys like us who are working in towns and one at a time and working in more town building, I call it, rather than developing, we seem to go through those times better.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have a commodity. We're not
Yes.
a commodity.
Yes.
So these apartment developers, they build them, lease them up, and sell them to the Ohio State Teacher Pension Fund.
That's right.
Who doesn't know.
Which goes into, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, it's called Inside Job. And it talks about the whole deregulation of the finance industry and how that same thing was done where loans, default loans were packaged as investments being sold to other companies. And it's like it was a whole setup of making people fail
Right.
in order to have a commodity that you could sell
Well, think
and
about
make
it.
money on.
Think about a normal deal in West Dallas going on right now. Okay, some developer promoter comes in, quite often without any money. Not always, but quite often packaging a deal, packages a deal, raises $20 or $30 million, builds a project, okay, and then gets in touch with another broker, another fund manager, like our pension fund guy who wasted all our money in Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two brokers, no skin in the game.
None.
And so he overpays this guy to get money. Now the Ohio State teachers have a poor investment, or the Dallas Police and Fire have a poor investment. So the people with the skin in the game get screwed.
Yes, they
They
lose
get
out
screwed, and the neighborhood
completely.
gets screwed because you come in and taking the money out of the community,
That's right.
and it's in some guy's pocket somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't care. And what's
No,
funny to
doesn't
me
care.
in Oak Cliff and in West Dallas, which is where I know, is just like we have people, the chambers of commerce and stuff, supporting this, and it's in other groups, and it's like, are you not looking at
At
what
the
the
long-term
consequence?
effects.
That's
Yeah.
You're supporting this zoning change that I mean, go to Bishop Arts right now. Bishop Arts is fixing to no longer be
That's right.
what it was.
No.
I mean, they are scraping
Yes.
everything over there.
Yes.
There will be, and I don't understand, you could have created more density by allowing a house that's there to maybe add a second unit on and a garage apartment.
Right.
And you could have created affordable housing, owner occupied
Right.
affordable housing in the neighborhood.
But that gets away from
I'm a big developer, so I don't
That's
have
right.
an opportunity to come in here and do what I want to
The
do.
developer needs to go and behave where it's appropriate. And I think, I'm not against the developers.
Right.
But you're not the lead. You're not the lead here.
Okay.
You need to behave into the space that we need to create, and we in the communities need to create and hold the developers.
So I was going to say,
accountable.
so how do you put those checks and balances in to keep the big developer? Because right now they have the pocketbooks.
Zone, that what happens in Dallas right now mostly is you buy zoning.
Okay.
Okay, it's not done from the community level. 'Cause
Okay.
we, Fort Worth Avenue, we created a zoning, the community did. We created a PD, a zoning, that was a good one. It was
Okay.
protective
So
of
when you
all
say
the
PD,
people.
so again for my
The
viewers,
PD is a plan development, it's a
Okay.
zoning change.
Okay.
And it was something that protected views, and so Sylvan 30 comes along and goes and changes all the zoning
Wow.
and ruins the views and changes and gets, and takes away from what the people that originally created the PD wanted it to be.
Wow.
And it's big money, billionaire capital coming in against us, and you can pay consultants. I mean, you don't pay off city council people, but you
Right.
buy your consultants, and they go take care of the city council people.
Wow.
It's a very corrupt system here, and the hardcore corruption or the cronyism is
Yes.
so bad that it's just things
That
don't
your
make
everyday
sense.
person
Yes.
ends up being a tool to line someone's pocket.
And let me tell you, there's
Absolutely
what's
correct.
even worse is there's these community activists that
Sure.
are down here in our area that appear to be, all in
Right,
favor.
for
And
the
they
people.
they get bought out by these developers, and all of a sudden you have this community activist who was promoting good quality development, and all of a sudden he's like
Mind change.
supporting this
Right.
developer. Said, well,
What
wait,
happened?
Who are you?
Right.
I would love to. I would love to.
Please, please,
Okay,
please.
Monte, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is unfortunately the real way it works in Dallas. And I'm just going to give you a real life example right now. So part of my affordable housing plan is proposing a 300 unit multifamily complex, low income and moderate income, so that vouchers can be accepted. This is on Singleton Boulevard on land that I already own that's completely vacant.
Okay.
And I'm also proposing a 100-unit senior assisted living facility / daycare on land that I already own that's vacant.
And I do want to bring up that point because a lot of people just think that part of displacement is just poor families.
Mhm.
But the elderly
Oh.
is also
Oh,
greatly impacted
hugely
because they're very limited with their means
Oh,
of
absolutely.
money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I proposed these two projects that the community appears to highly support. And however, we're getting no traction at City Hall because it doesn't fit their gentrification agenda. And I have activists in the city who are not supporting this plan because they are aligned with, and I'm using this very general words, they're aligned with the political establishment. So indeed, Monte, my experience is even though a community may support a project,
Sure.
City Hall can, just choose to ignore it and then have their chosen activists, continue to be, continue not to support it as well. And so nothing gets done.
Wow.
And what it shows, I think, is a real corrupt and crony-based system. And we really need to start putting people before City Hall politics.
It's like one of our own, like in these activists, the developers, I mean, we're greedy. I mean,
Yes,
we try to
that's
be
the-
less,
yes.
we try to be less bad.
That's the
You know,
perception. Right.
But as a developer, my job is to get your property in my hands and,
Right.
and
Make money
develop,
off of it.
make money.
Mhm.
And so we just try to be less bad.
Mhm.
But these activists who disguise themselves
Mhm.
as community
That's
activists,
Liaisons
and then
and-
all of a
yes.
sudden you don't know where they're getting paid.
Mhm.
And I all of a sudden I ask somebody, wait a minute, where did this come from? Who is paying you?
Mhm.
Right.
Who are
Right.
you working for? You're
Right.
now working, and they're down at, they're perceived as this community activist. Now they're down
Right.
at City Hall
Exactly.
lobbying, and the City Hall thinks that they represent the community.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
it's the worst of the worst. I've
agree.
seen it for a long time, and I know
Oh,
people that
gosh.
used to be my friends.
Yes.
Used to be my friends. I thought
Yes.
were truly true.
Vested in,
But
in the community.
I don't have a problem with a lobbyist or developer or anybody as long as the disclosure's there.
Right.
Or self-interest or
Right.
an agenda.
Right,
Let's
right.
just know what it is.
Right.
Mhm.
Up
So
front,
having
we can all deal with
transparent-
each other.
transparency, yes.
Absolutely. And that is what is really lacking. And look, we need HUD money in Dallas, and HUD money right now is at risk because City Hall's mismanagement of it. I'm
$29 million missing.
that's at least
That's
at
huge.
least. Now look,
That's probably the tip of the
I
iceberg.
It's the tip of
know.
the iceberg.
I
And
know.
I am going to meet Ben Carson. I'm going to make sure I meet Ben Carson. I'm going to do everything I can to meet Ben Carson to reset our HUD relationship in Dallas, Texas.
I want to be there with you.
Fantastic, come along.
Yes.
So I am literally reaching out to him.
Yes.
Already saying,
Yes.
we need to meet, we need to redefine our HUD relationship, and I've got the project, the flagship project to do it in West Dallas.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
project means more than just building affordable housing in West Dallas. It's resetting our relationship with HUD so that we don't lose out in all the affordable housing money that's
That
out
can
there.
help people.
That's been misused all these years. I mean,
Oh,
we
gosh.
use HUD money to build high-end developments.
Yes.
How does that even make
How,
sense?
how do you use federal dollars
Exactly.
for high-end development?
I know.
That's
Shamelessly.
Yes.
Shamelessly.
Yes, we
But
do.
we need to redefine that, and we need
Yes.
to reset it, and I've got the project to do it, and the community is gonna benefit from it. We need
Great.
affordable housing in Dallas right now.
Yes, we
Hopefully
do.
you'll build it cool. I was listening to a girl in the Bertrand neighborhood the other night, and she was saying, I don't mind apartments, but build us some cool looking loftish looking apartments. Build us
Monty, I
build
want
us some
you to
stuff that's like cool.
Join me in building and developing the best affordable housing project in the
That's
nation.
what we need. We need to build a cool place that makes people feel good, that can still be affordable
Absolutely.
and work. Because
Yes.
even the affordable housing needs and the people in that area, they deserve decent,
Absolutely.
not just another cheap,
That's right.
Cheap
crappy.
That's right.
house.
That's
So
right.
we can
live
have
in,
an
yes.
affordable product,
Mm-hmm.
a good product
Mm-hmm.
that still really cares about what he wanted. So this girl wanted a cool loft,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mhm.
a
And
raw
she shouldn't
floor.
have to go somewhere and spend $2,000
That's
a
what they have
month
to
in
do
order
right now.
to
You
have
can't
that.
even get that. You
Right.
can't even rent anything like that affordably anymore, anywhere.
No, you
Anywhere.
cannot.
Well, I invite you both. I'm going to get my meeting with Ben Carson, and we're going to talk about what
I
Dallas,
love it.
and we're going to talk about this project, and I would love for both of you to come join me
Yes.
and be
Glad
part
to.
of
I will
making
be
the best
there.
affordable
Yes.
housing development in
Yes.
Dallas history.
Yes. So I would like to say in closing, and I say this all the time, and I've had plenty of guests from judges, League of Women's Voters, school board trustees, community activists, making sure that you understand who you are giving your vote to. Understand who these candidates are. Understand the role that they are campaigning for. And above anything else, that's what you really need to know. Understand what your county commissioner does. Understand what your district clerk does. Understand your city council, mayor, everything. And, you know, we just had the recent hiring of a new city manager. I went to the interviews, and I'm happy to go to all of these meetings and report back to the people. But you guys aren't there. You're not showing up, making your voice heard. And to have developers who want to protect your interests and provide a service, we have to get behind the right people, and we have to demand transparency and, above all, accountability, because you pay a price, good or bad, for whomever is in office, from the president all the way down to who a precinct chair is, and sometimes precinct chairs are elected. So really understand what your elected officials can do for you as a community. Because if not, keeping your head in the sand, assuming that someone is going to do what is in your best interest, is really a disservice to yourself. And we're starting to see that. And even with the recent presidential election, people are having voters' remorse as a result of the choice that has been made. So people, really understand what your vote means and understand where the power of your vote really lies, because it lies locally. It lies in choosing the correct judge for a criminal felony bench. It means something to put the right person into those elected positions, which was the whole reason why I started Coffee and Politics 101, was to get that information out there to you. So I definitely want to thank my guests for coming on the show today, because this was a great conversation. So I do hope that you feel welcome and will want to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you so
And I
much.
definitely want us to talk about your Ben Carson meeting
Great.
and report back, you know, what those next steps are going to be, because people need to understand who's fighting for them, what we're fighting for, and what the result is of those fights, and how they can become part of the solution. So thank you everyone for tuning in.